Hello and welcome to another edition of Kayak Fishing Weekly. For anybody who's new, we're the show on the Serious Angler Network that is dedicated to all things kayak fishing. So if it's your first time here, welcome. If you're a returning listener, welcome. Hopefully, we're going to have some fun this evening or whatever time you are listening. In terms of news, not a ton going on right now. No major tournaments since our last episode, but I want to run through the Angler of the Year standings for Bassmaster because I saw those posted on social media this week. I have not seen the updated Hobie BOS standings since the Cayuga tournament, so they have standings from before that, but I suspect they changed at least a little bit. So I'll hold off on giving that list until I see the updated one. But for bass, I want to give some shine to those guys sitting inside the Bassmaster Kayak Series top 10. We still got a couple tournaments to go, but at this point, if you're inside the top 10, you've done very well, and you are in all likelihood, you're already qualified for this, for the 2025 championship down in Texas. So, without further ado, we'll start 10th place with 607 points. Joshua Deal, 9th with 613 points. Barry Davis, 627 points. 8th place, Curtis Vance III, 663 points. 7th place, Jason Isaacs. In 6th place with 664 points, Mark Edwards. John Tibbins in 5th with 670 points. 4th place currently is Derek Brundle with 693 points. With 696, Mr. Ryan Nye. 717 holding down the runner-up spot, Casey Reed. And in first with 728 points, Russ Snyder's the GOAT. So congrats to everybody sitting inside the top 10. Again, when I see the Hobie standings, I will be sure to share those. And in terms of upcoming tournaments, it's a little bit of a wait before the next one. On the Hobie side, the next event will be Saginaw Bay, August 10th and 11th. And for Bassmaster, next tournament is going to be late July. It's the 27th and 28th, I believe, on the Susquehanna River. That should be a slugfest. Always a lot of fun. I am hoping to make it to that one. Still not 100% sure, but that one should be a ton of fun. And then the only one of the national trails that I've found for this for the current month for June, we've got a native no limit big bass power hour event that is it's happening out west. So for you West Coast guys, this is one for you. It's on the Columbia River in Washington, and it is taking place. How did I leave off the date? It's June 15th. So it's a one-day event, June 15th. Those native events it's a really cool format for anybody who's never tried one. It's cool that it's like two tournaments going on simultaneous. There's a big bass prize to whoever catches the biggest bass, and then every hour there's an additional prize. So the person who catches the biggest bass every hour is getting some money. They're winning a significant amount of money. Whoever catches the biggest overall bass is getting additional money. And then there's a no limit side of the tournament where every fish that meets the minimum standard, it counts, kind of like that Major League Fishing format. You can catch as many fish. I mean, as many fish as you catch will count. And for this one, I'm just scrolling through Tourney X here, checking to see if they mention that limit. I don't see it advertised. I remember I did one on the Susquehanna a couple years ago, and it was, I think, or no, maybe it was last year. And I think it was a 14-inch minimum, but it kind of varies from fishery. So I don't know exactly what the minimum is going to be on the Columbia River, but I do know that it is a very good smallmouth bass fishery. So that one should be fun for anybody out west. Really cool opportunity. Tournaments like that are fun because in a lot of traditional ones, you go out there, you catch some fish. If you're not really on them, typically you kind of know, by middle of the day, if it's not happening, the likelihood that you put up, a crazy total and kind of make a run up the leaderboard in the final hours or minutes of the tournament is not very likely. But with this format, you could catch the biggest bass of the event or even just the biggest bass of that hour. So you fish every minute. You're never out of it. There's always something, even if you're not contending for that no limit win, you still got an opportunity to win a significant amount of money, which is just one bite. So it's a cool format in that way. If you've never tried one, definitely a lot of fun. So yeah, that is all I got in terms of news. So I guess it's about time for us to bring a guest on. And I had an interesting topic today. Wanted to talk a little bit. We're getting into the summer. For me, I start to think about rivers this time of year, catching smallmouth. The bite is starting to get tough. Fish are starting to get out a little deeper, where it's tougher for me to catch them. But I like getting bites, and I think the bait, the technique we're going to talk about today, is something that will help people catch a lot of fish, whether you're fishing rivers for smallmouth or just looking to catch numbers or quality fish in a lake somewhere. So yeah, let's jump right into it. All right, so I am bad at these introductions, but the guest today, we're going to talk a little bit about smallmouth fishing, specifically with a finesse jig. And our guest is a fantastic tournament angler, fantastic fisherman in general. He last year won 3 different Angler of the Year crown, like won the Angler of the Year for 3 different trails in West Virginia. He's done very, very well on the Bassmaster Kayak Series. I believe he was in 2022, finished 3rd in the Angler of the Year. We mentioned him earlier. He's currently sitting in 6th in the Angler of the Year standings. Had a great tournament at Gunnersville a couple weeks ago. Yeah, I'm butchering the intro, but Mark's a fantastic fisherman. So without further ado, Mark Edwards. Mark, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So I've already kind of spilled the beans. We're going to talk about a swim jig, and that is something I got a chance to fish with you. Well, at least share a campground, a cabin with you on the Susquehanna, and I saw you and another angler. I won't name drop him, but you guys had a similar deal. You guys throw that finesse jig, and I've done it a little bit, but I'm by no means an expert with that jig. But you've caught a lot of fish. You did. I mean, that was one of your primary weapons, and the Susky when I don't know if hopefully people can see that check back there, 5th place for the Susquehanna, when Bassmaster was there last year. But that was one of your weapons, wasn't it?
Four of my 5 fish on day 1 come off a jig.
I like it. So it's something that you've done, and I mentioned, in my bad introduction, you you did something that I don't think's ever been done before. Those 3 major trails in West Virginia. You won Angler of the Year for all of them last year. I know the guys out there hate seeing when you show up for a tournament because you you do very, very well all the time. And that's one of the things that you use to catch a lot of fish. So I guess let's start off, kind of what makes a finesse jig to you?
Well, to me, a finesse jig, like so everybody can look at it different. I was showing you earlier my jigs. Like I actually
Yeah.
trim them up, so I like a round ball head,
Okay.
and two the line tie on this deal is like really really. It's hard to. I don't
Yeah.
know if you
Shift,
can
pull it
see
back
it
a
there,
little tiny bit.
but the line tie is kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
down in the head, so it doesn't stick out very far. And
Gotcha.
me personally, I get hung up less with using this head to round ball. And then to make it finessey, it's only got a 2-aught hook. And then I trimmed
Okay.
the skirt all the way down here to the hook. So it's not, this one here has a little bit more skirt material, but I haven't used this one. And like
Yeah.
some
Let's
of these,
let's see some of the ones you've thrown.
yeah,
What happens to them?
yeah. So when I throw them a little bit, they, the strands come out and stuff. And there's the trailer I use. I ain't gonna name the trailer, but anyway, it's the
Yeah.
only trailer I use. And
Let's take a look at that head, all the paint that's knocked off.
yeah, all the paint. Where is it at? Go this way.
There you go.
Yeah, there's no paint left on the head, but they don't seem to matter because it's all the time on the bottom. I mean, there's times when I'd reel them in or something, and you see one fall and you kill it and they'll eat it. But
Dang. Well,
yeah,
let's
this
talk a
is a
little.
used one.
So you said round ball head. It's basically just a piece of lead. You mentioned specifically a 2-aught hook, and then it's got a skirt on it. Are you using rubber or any of those pretty silicone materials that they have?
Now for my finesse jig here, I just used silicone. Is
Okay,
all I use, and I'm just go with different natural collars. I mean, really, I don't have no black and blue. I don't really use black and blue.
okay,
I don't really use it if the water's dirty much. It's always, a little. I live in West Virginia, water's clear a lot of times, and so I kind of go with natural collars.
gotcha. So Clearwater bait, finesse tactic, um, fairly natural colors, and I should have touched on this before. I know we talked a little bit offline, but you make that jig yourself. Is that right? Or at
Yeah,
least
yeah. I
assemble
mean,
it yourself?
yeah, I used to buy. So I actually buy the heads. It's a boss head that you can buy, and it's their finesse brown ball finesse head. But and they make good collar skirts too, really nice skirts. But their band's horrible. I mean, like it won't even last a year and it'll rot off. So
Gotcha.
once I started doing that and it just falling apart in my box after a year, I just started wrapping it with. I've always made trout jigs and stuff, so I got dobbin material and I just hand tie the. Well, actually, I got it right here.
Okay, so you got basically like the same way these guys are. Yeah.
Yeah, the old dobbin tool and I use red a lot because like I'll do my own feathers on top water baits and stuff.
Okay.
And the red with green pumpkin, it doesn't really, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't.
Still looks
And
good. It's not a
yeah,
kind of a clashy, loud color.
no, and I got.
I like that. So I was thinking you were using wire, like a
Well,
light
I do
wire,
too.
kinda like okay.
I do use wire too, copper wire.
So
Yeah,
what
so
would
I
make
do it
you
both actually.
so what will make you pick one over the other? Or
I
is it
use them
just
both.
okay. Oh, so you use the wire first and then the thread or
No, I use the thread and then I'll put the wire on it.
okay. Okay.
I mean, that might
I
be
like it.
backwards. I don't know. That's just my kind of. That's just the way I've been doing it, and ever since I've been doing that, it's been really good. I don't lose near as many tinsels out of it and all that kind of stuff because like I was telling you earlier, like so there's a lot of small fish in our rivers, and we fished a 2-day tournament this weekend, and I know I caught 25 fish over 12 inches on a jig probably. I
On the
mean,
same
there's
bait.
a bunch of fish. I mean, I've probably caught 35 or more fish. I mean, you do give it, you do catch them 9 and 10 inchers sometimes, but a lot
Gotcha.
majority of them's 12 inchers.
No, and I think you're spot on with that wire. Like I've noticed a lot more companies like the jackhammer, chatterbaits. A lot of companies are
Hmm.
going to that wire to where you can leave it in your box, and on a hot
Yeah,
day,
you ain't got to worry about it.
it's not gonna melt. And then your first cast, the next trip out, the whole skirt comes off. It's like you can still destroy them. I've had the smallmouth, tear up the little wire off the mini max and just destroy the skirt. But usually well, I'll put it this way, it takes quite a few fish to do that, and then it also like, it lasts a whole lot longer than it would have if it had been rubber, and they just pull it down and, like you said, you don't have to worry about the rot. So I really like spinnerbaits and chatterbaits that have that wire, kinda like you're tying yourself.
Yeah, so I started doing it. I guess I'm kind of a hoarder. Like I'd have a spinner bait that'd be 5 or 6 years old and it'd be in your box, so your box gets warm and all that stuff. And I started seeing the bands and stuff getting all they'll swell up, and then everything gets loose on it. So I started just taking the threads and Dobbins and just doing all my spinner baits, like probably like 8 years ago or so. I just done all my spinner baits like that.
So
And
where do you get your supplies, or where can people find that dobbin or that wire that you're using?
well, the wire I found at Hobby Lobby, and
Okay.
the Dobbins is kind of like, man, wherever I can find it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get it off like Lornet or there's a no, not Lornet. It's a shoot. There's Barlow's Tackle. I've ordered stuff from Barlow's Tackle.
Gotcha.
It's just and there's what is
So you're
Bill Lowen's? Bill Lowen sponsored by
Lure Parts Online?
Lower Ponce Online. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They just got a bunch of material stuff that you can find. Yeah,
Cool. So basically, somebody can go to any of those places and, find the tools to make their own little jigs like that.
yeah, and it's a key. Like my old saying is confidence is a key to fishing. I mean, it's their so when I ain't got a store bought what everybody else has. Mine's just a little bit different. So to me, I think it's a little bit of an advantage. Not
I
that a
like that.
fish can tell that this thing's got a little bit different flake in it, or just a little bit different color, green pumpkin, brown, different hues to it.
Yeah,
Which
and you like you keep it pretty simple with colors too, right? You're not throwing a bunch of different colors. Or are
well,
you?
I kind of do. I mean, like I was showing you a while ago, I got like five of them here, and there's four of them's different colors. And the one tied on my pole right now that I caught all the fish this weekend is a different hue of green pumpkin to them, but they're
Okay.
all green pumpkin hues. They just
Gotcha.
all got different. Man, I can't see like I used to. So this is more of a green pumpkin with a little bit of brown, darker brown hues. I need my glasses. I'm getting blind. And this is a bard, what they call bard. It's more like the peanut butter and jelly color, sort of.
Yeah, it
So it's
almost
a
looks like,
lighter brown with black bars in it,
gotcha.
uh, which
Yeah.
is just something that's a little different. And then this is my secret collar that they don't make anymore, and I cannot find it. Which it's got. Sorry, going the wrong way, but it's got flakes on silicone,
Okay.
so it's pretty much just a natural look. Now look at it now; it's
Ooh,
working.
yeah, now it's all over there. So it looks like a watermelon, kind of like a real light colored version of green and maybe some orange in there.
Yeah, it's kind of got red and orange flake and blue flake, which
That
is
looks
man,
good.
this collar here is killer. I only got two more of them
It
left,
reminds me a
and
little bit, what is it called? Strike King used to make one. I can't remember what it's called. They had like a finesse flipping jig, and then they had a finesse jig that, I mean, I remember years
a
ago, and I
bitsy.
was
They got a bitsy
Bitsy
bug, a
Bug,
flipping
Bitsy
bitsy.
Bug.
Yeah, yeah. They got a
It
bitsy bug and
reminds
a
me,
flipping. Yeah,
what was it called? It was like a watermelon. It was like a watermelon and uh, like a orangish brown, like real light is what that reminds me of. And shoot, I haven't thrown those in years. Missile makes some that are real similar that I like. They've got a micro jig that is, well, you've seen it. Our
hmm
buddy was throwing that a little bit for smallmouth and
yeah.
doing
You
well
got to
with it.
assemble them. That's pretty neat. You got to assemble them when you get them. But them
Yeah,
are
you
like
can
so.
actually.
That's a true finesse. I mean,
Oh yeah,
that's what I'd
that
call micro finesse.
that's
Because
exactly
even
what
with
they
these
call
little
it.
jigs, I mean, I throw 99% of the time these is 5/16 head. So it's
Ah,
just a little bit bigger than a quarter, and I'm throwing it on 16-pound line, medium heavy St. Croix rod. Exact same rod, reel, line that I would throw my. That's what I throw my flipping jig on if I'm largemouth fishing on a lake. It's the same 16-pound sun line,
so your
same.
so your setup with that finesse jig is the same as what you do, like, if you're gonna go flip trees or docks or whatever in a lake
It's the
for the
same
greenfish.
rod. Yeah,
Same setup, dang. 'Cause
yeah.
I know I've thrown, and again, the little micro jig I was talking about, I'll throw on lighter line, like 8 or 10, and then I've thrown some other stuff, you get up to I guess what I would call the equivalent of that bitsy bug. Missile has the finesse jig, Ike's finesse jig they call it, and that it's kind of like the bitsy bug I used to throw, and I think that's pretty close to yours, but I think it's got a beefier hook. Yours is like that too. That's not a
This is
giant
probably a
hook.
medium. This is probably a medium hook. It's not really a
Okay.
light wire. I mean, I don't know how good you can. I think
Yeah, not lightweight, but that's still a pretty good size.
it's still a
I think.
good hook. Now the other day, it did bend out on me a little bit. I mean, so it was a little bit bent out, but I mean, I just bent it back in with my thing, and I
Okay.
actually caught a 22-inch smallmouth on it this past weekend.
I wanted to talk about that. I saw that on social media. It's a
Yeah, so
giant.
I caught a yeah. That's insane. That's the biggest one that I've ever measured. In a kayak. I remember a boat tournament one time when I had a golden rule. We caught one in a night tournament, and it was at the time I'm thinking it's the biggest smallmouth I ever caught, and it's in June. And so, the lake I live close to is a Bluestone Lake. It's on the New River, and uh, so I ran up in the river right at dark and caught this smallmouth, and we got it in the boat and stuff. And I'm thinking it's 6 pounder when he netted it. It was just so big, and I probably had the mouth open and stuff, but I remember my golden rule goes to 22 inches, and I remember calling it a 22-inch smallmouth. But as far as it being mouth closed and all that, I
Oh
don't
yeah.
remember. But I just knew I had big fish, right? Like I just knew it. Like we got big fish in the tournament, and we'd won our first tournament, I think 2 weeks prior to this, and so I'm thinking we got a chance to win again. And then I think we finished third, and then the fish weighs like 4.3, and it was so disappointing because it was so big. It was so long, but it was just so skinny and just didn't have no weight to it.
Those
And then
river
it didn't
fish.
even get big fish. Somebody ended up catching a big largemouth.
Oh, that made me sick.
But
But
so
I've caught a
like
few. I've
like we
never
was
caught
talking
a
about
22.
collars, like I just got so many different, and they're all green pumpkins, but like this one's got purple flake, and I don't know if you can see the purple flake in it or not.
Ooh, that looks.
Yeah, I've won a tournament off this actually in a lake before bed fishing. Even I mean the same trailer. This is a 3-inch pit
La
ball.
la 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 la.
No, no, 3-inch pit ball. I've never threw it in the river. I mean it
Okay.
might do really really good in the river. I don't know.
So that's your lake one, and then we won't talk about the river one, right?
Yeah,
People
the
can go
river
back and
trailer.
watch it.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah, we won't name it, but yeah,
Yeah.
people that know. And I
Well,
mean,
but yeah, it's really common. But so yeah, so like every jig I've popped up here is just got a little bit different collar, and then in
okay.
some of them I put the bars in them. And what a,
Yeah,
what a,
yeah.
what a barred is so it'd be maybe even orange to black. That's what a barred is. It means it's got black lines every.
Yeah. It almost
Yeah,
makes it look like a bug to me, but I've bought some skirt material over the years and tried to make my own stuff, and it never looks good. I'm always, when those skirts go bad, the standard ones, I'm always trying to play around and get different colors, but it always, always ending up, I guess 90% of the ones that I would make were that some version of green or brown, and just mixing another color in with it, trying to get something that basically looks like a crawfish. I mean, that's ultimately what you're imitating, or at least
yeah,
what you
yeah.
think.
Well, I read a book when I was a kid years ago, and it said river smallmouth. Their diet's over 80 some percent is crayfish.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I
I
can
mean,
see
I
it.
guess it varies on location. Every place is different. And I mean, I don't know if they were talking about the New River or where, but
Gotcha. Yeah, because you definitely got some places like the Susky are just. I remember drifting through there that my first time on the river, water was real low, and there was just a little skinny place you could barely even float a kayak through it, and it just the whole bottom was alive. Like you drift over it and just watch these
yeah, yeah, yeah.
dozens of crawfish just going everywhere. like the entire time. I mean, I took a video camera out and tried to capture it because it was just, it's like the entire bottom was just covered with them. But then I fished some other places where, yeah, there's crawfish in there and you'll see them, but not like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like I was actually dragging my kayak up a rapids this weekend, and I looked down and I seen a giant, looked like a lobster. I mean, it was a huge crawdad, and I actually got my net and I was trying to catch the daggone thing, and it was a little too deep. It went under some rocks, and I moved them rocks, and then it got to where I couldn't see it anymore. But it was like, man, I don't know how many inches. It was probably almost half the size of my hand or something. It was so big, and it was
Dang.
orange. I mean, it was like bright orange, like you would think fire crawl or something, in winter or early spring.
Gotcha.
So
So
I
do you
don't.
think, do you try to, or I remember reading about trout guys, going and, kicking over rocks and, or using a seine and then kind of kicking rocks up, having somebody downstream basically with a net to catch the crawfish and bait fish and look and see what color everything is and try and, imitate it. Are you taking it to that level, or is it just kind of, if it looks
Nah,
good in
I
the
don't.
water?
I don't take it to that level. I'll go with the lighter browns if the water's clear.
Okay.
I'll go to lighter, like the one I told you was my favorite color is when it's really really clear, and it's this one here, but it's got a little bit of flake, and you can see how light it is. And then this one right here is a little darker.
Mm,
I mean, they're both green pumpkin there. This has got
yeah.
bars, but it's got a little bit of orange, and then it's got a little bit of darker brown in it. It's hard to tell on this camera and stuff, but
Shoot, they
just
both look good to me.
they look the same, and I think it's more a mental thing because it's like, oh, I made a new collar. Let's try it out, and then I'll have it tied on. Like last year, I have it here somewhere. I, what's crazy is I can pick it up and know which one I was through last year. It's this one right here.
Yeah, you were
And
telling me some, like, you had the same jig tied on for months and months.
yeah, I had this jig tied on, and you can tell, even though you can see where it's hand tied, where the red, and
Yeah.
it's got a wire underneath that. So I might have done the wire first on this one. I guess it varies on which one I done. But there's like no skirt over here. See how there's no skirt
Yeah.
left over here, and then there's like a little bit of skirt over there left. But that's what I'm. Well, four of the fish on the Susquehanna come off this,
How
and then
many
I would almost say, and this hook is. I mean, dude, this hook is still. Dude, that thing is
still
still
sharp?
like. Yeah, it's still super sharp.
And
And
how many
weed
fish
guard
would
on
you
these, look, if you look at it, I've never even trimmed a weed guard on this. It's just really light.
Gotcha.
It's really light.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've heard,
But
I know I went crazy one time reading, I don't remember if it was Bassmaster or Bass Times. I remember hearing about guys trimming them, and I went through a bunch of jigs and started cutting them all, and I think it actually makes it, like, stiffer, it's harder to compress it,
I,
and
I
for,
agree. I agree. I quit trimming them up.
yeah, only thing I'll do if I'm trying to get it a little softer, I mean, one, you could tear some strands out, but the other thing I'll do is, like, separate it, almost like making a V around the point to where you've got your point, but then you've got your bristles going around it, and it's kind of fanned out. You ever do stuff like that, or you just leave it kinda standard?
Yeah. See, so I bought this jig last year when we was at Gunnersville, and it was like a Gunnersville special collar or something. If you look at it's a custom jig from a guy down Gunnersville, and it was
Okay.
his Gunnersville special collar or whatever, right? So anyway, so last year I never got a bite on it. This year we were down there and I tied it back on again, but I lost several fish on it. Like, it was in practice or whatever, but I lost several fish, and that was the first time I ever got bit on it. And man, I got to looking, and the weed guard here is stiff. I mean, he's got a wide gap hook, and it's actually like a medium wire. It actually flexes a little bit.
Okay.
But what I did was, is if you can tell, I spread it
Yeah.
out.
Yep.
I just,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
like what she was just now talking. So I just spread it out like that, and then that makes it weaker. Makes it smash down a little
Gotcha.
better.
But the
And
jig, the one that you make, that skirt just has kind of the right amount of softness to where you don't have to monkey with it at all. It's just it's good.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't like here's well, this is a bigger one. See, and it's crazy. I don't make consistently make the same collars. When ever since I quit buying the actual skirt with the rubber on it, and I'm grabbing so many strands of different collars, I
Yeah,
just make them. I just make them all different. And
I like
like
it.
this one's actually got. I don't know if you can see the orange flake in it. Like it's got an orange flake in it.
Okay. I can't see the flakes, but I can see kind of the just the overall color. It looks more like some of that just lighter shades of green and brown.
Yeah, but I really like the flakes in it. I don't know
Okay.
if it's just me or mental thing or what, but and it's probably to the fish. It probably don't matter because I guess I get anal about the smallmouth in the river and having all these little different collars and but the ones I make for flipping wood and stuff, and it's still a finesse jig. So when I largemouth fish, I mean this is the and I just buy the this is the old this see it's still got the skirt on it, the
Okay.
skirt collar, the rubber. It's just
Mhm.
a green pumpkin ball skirt, and I put them up on there, and I still tie it. This has got a little copper wire, but it's just green
Okay.
pumpkin. On the largemouth, I don't get with the flake deal. I don't know if it's. I don't know why. I'm thinking a jig on a. You're flipping it in a tree. I mean, it ain't really a crawdad. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like I know I'm imitating a crawdad in the river because it's bumping rocks on the bottom, and
Gotcha.
like the smallmouth I was catching the other day, they were all everything was spitting up was crawdad. Everything was orange.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but
Eh,
like when I'm largemouth fishing, halftime I think they're bluegill-ish stuff like that.
okay.
But I just mainly just use the green pumpkin or bluegill color. The only two colors I use,
But
unless it
see
gets really bad and I go black and blue. Real
okay.
dirty water.
And then more creative with the kind of finessey smallmouth colors.
Yeah, yeah.
Alright, so we talked about, what makes the swim jig. You like that round ball head with that specific line tie, you know, medium wire hook, size 2. We've got the, uh, oh, brain's not working, silicone skirt material. We talked about, rod and reel setup. You mentioned that you're throwing the bait casting rod, heavier line, 16-pound test, and I think a lot of
16
guys that
pound.
throw.
Yeah, Sunline's a little bit. It's a smaller diameter. It's 16-pound strength, but it's actually on the smaller side if you compared it to like Berkeley. It's a standard size.
Okay,
Yeah, Berkeley's always a little on the big side actually for the weight that they are.
gotcha.
Yeah.
And then in terms of weight, you said 5/16 ounce is kinda your go-to for fishing that current for smallmouth.
Hmm.
Alright, so
It seems to be the same. Even on the Susquehanna, it was the same. Even
so I
though
wanna
the current picked up the next day, I was still through it the second day, but I
after all
didn't
that
do that good
rain.
because it got muddier.
Yeah, my stuff turned to mud. I didn't catch him good the first day, though. Um, shoot, where was my brain going? Alright, so we kind of went over all the gear and the technique, but or I'm sorry, the gear for the technique, but I wanna talk a little bit about how you actually fish it, and I think you hinted at it there. You said you're basically just fishing it on the bottom. Now, are you dragging or hopping?
I guess I'm a dragger. I never. I don't, man, I'll hop at some too. But so like the new river, I'm usually in current. I mean, I'll throw this in anywhere from dead still water to actually in the rapids. I'll throw it in the rapids.
Okay,
It's yeah, and it. I mean, I've had luck with it everywhere. I mean, actually, when I'm dragging a kayak up a rapids, that's the rod I got in my hand that I'm casting.
really?
Yeah, yeah, which you wouldn't think. But that's so you're. I'm throwing it in the little pockets.
Okay,
Anything that's got a little bit of depth to it.
a little eddy somewhere where it's
Yeah, a little eddy or something.
current seems something's a little bit different from from the, I guess, that slows the current down a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'll throw it anywhere, and then we'll get a lot of grass, and I just noticed it just started growing there the other day, and so it comes through that grass really, really good too.
Okay.
I don't I don't know the types of grass we have in the river. It's different, and it's not hydrilla or nothing like that.
Is it that stringy stuff with kinda leaves on it?
Yeah, yeah, we get some of that, and then there's I don't know. It's kind of weird stuff. It's the only place I've ever seen it's in a new river.
Hmm. I'm ashamed that I live as close to it as I do, and I've yet to make it there. I've been
You
up on the
never fished a
James,
new?
never been to the Dune.
Good
I'm gonna
time.
have I'm gonna have to make a trip, um,
Wonder how many times you
because it's
crossed it.
pretty much every time I go west for a tournament, I'm taking 81 to 40, yeah, I'm driving over it. There's some of the tournaments, I'm driving along it, like back roads, I'm crossing it multiple times and kind of following it, and, yeah, I've just never I've driven past it an awful lot, and I know it's arguably the best smallmouth, the Virginia side of it is some of the best smallmouth water we have for big fish, especially.
It's
I mean,
the Virginia side is so much better than West Virginia side. Actually, this past weekend in 2-day tournament, well, the day one leader actually was in West Virginia, but the next three guys was at the same ramp in Virginia. So that tells you,
mm,
you know what I'm saying. And
yeah,
so three out of the top four was in Virginia.
makes sense, I guess. So we talked the technique, basically just bouncing it. Now, you mentioned you were drifting it, and just is it staying on bottom, or is it more or less just kind of like I've heard Bill Lowen talk about how he floats a jig. Is that like a swim jig or a
No,
what?
I'm not floating. I want it to be bottom contact the whole time.
Okay.
So
So
like,
so
yeah, I
it's
want
just
it to be banging on the
bouncing
bottom.
as the current's kind of washing it,
Hmm.
and
So
that's
yeah,
that.
I cast it out. So anytime, even if I throw a Cinco or something out, I kind of always let it fall naturally. Like I want it to be slack.
Okay.
So even if I cast out in the rapids, I kind of let it want to hit the bottom, and then I'll start. Even I might start pulling it down the current and reeling it to me. I always try to fish it upstream 90% of the time too. Because like the other day, I did fish downstream. I ended up floating down almost a mile, and I went down through there and I changed from the jig to other baits, and I caught one fish in like a half mile of section that was good water. And I'm like flipping out, like, man, I went all the way down them rapids. Now I got to drag up them, and I didn't even catch a keeper, right? Like it was just one bite was all I got. And I turned around and come up, and I'm changing different baits and lures, and I'm just struggling. And then all of a sudden, this 100-yard section, I end up catching four fish over 12 inches and culling twice. And I mean, it was just like almost back to back cast. And
So
yeah, there were
when you
14 to
say
15 inch
fishing,
fish, huh?
okay.
Which
So
is
so
decent for the Greenbrier River where I was at. That's good fish.
oh yeah, I know it's West Virginia. Like when I hear West Virginia fishing, I think of like Ohio and Ohio River tough. Like,
It's rough.
and I've talked about you guys before, you and Jody and Matt Ball, and I mean there's an awful lot of guys out of West Virginia that do really well, everywhere, and I think it's partly because it's tough. So you fish these tough places, and if you can catch them there, you start going places that are not as tough, and you just absolutely smash them.
That man, we got some really really good fishermen that live in West Virginia, and so these local clubs are really really tough. Like this past weekend, you had Jody finish fourth. Matt, I think I finished fifth. Matt was right there somewhere near me. I haven't looked at the standing. I just know I didn't get any money for. I got money for big fish, but I didn't. I lost a big fish, and it was on the jig. It was my fault. And I really don't lose many fish on it. That's one of the reasons I like using it is because I don't lose a lot of fish. And I'll tell you another secret that I do use scent. I do believe in scent.
Mm,
I've had them short striking it. Like, so if anybody's ever trout fishing, like use the salmon egg and a split shot and you're kind of drifting your bait, your bait's just coming down through and it's tumbling along the rocks. That's kind of the way you want it. You want it to tumble along and then it'll run right by a trout and the trout will grab it. That's kind of what I'm doing my jig. I'm just letting it bounce along the rocks
mm.
and I'll cast upstream, but I'll let it at times go all the way downstream, just bouncing. And
Gotcha. So
then
you're throwing it upstream, letting the current take it all the way to where it's reaching you and sometimes even going past.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I like that.
I mean, sometimes you're throwing it away from you upstream. Sometimes you're throwing it dead upstream, and you're kind of reeling it right back to you. You
Gotcha.
know, yeah.
Okay. And then so with the scent, do you think it's more like they're smelling it and being attracted to it? Or is it do you think it just makes them like when they do bite at it, they actually commit to it and hold on to it?
They eat it so much better when they put scent on it.
Okay.
I've just had them where you'd go bouncing down through there and you'd feel one. Sometimes they're just peck, 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 peck. And a lot of times you're
Yeah.
thinking, oh, it's a little pecker. It's a little bass, right? Just pecking it,
Yep.
and it might even stop. So then you think, oh, they grabbed it. So then you'll jerk and you miss them or whatever, and then you make another cast and it's peck, peck, peck. Well, dude, I'll put scent on it, cast out in the same place, and it'll go down through there, and it's like peck, 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 and then it'll hold on to it. And I set the hook and catch them. I mean, it's
Gotcha.
wild. But I go from barely hooking fish. Sometimes you barely hook them, and then
Yeah,
I'll
just
start
skin.
using scent, and then they'll just be eating it. I mean,
Gotcha.
they really do bite it better.
I don't know why. Like there's some baits where like that's my theory too. Like I don't know how well they can smell, but I feel like a frog is something that I'll do. There's times where you'll see some of these, I don't know if they're fry garters or just post spawn fish that'll come up and mouth a frog, but they won't eat it. And I'll try to soak my topwater frogs in that, thinking that like I'm not trying to attract him to it. I'm just trying to get him if he
When
puts
they
his
do,
mouth on it, I want
yeah,
him
he
to,
knows that it's
you know,
could be real. It makes it, yeah,
that's my
more
theory,
flavor to it. I mean, yeah, he's like,
but I'm dumb because I don't do the jigs. It doesn't even cross my mind to put it on. And I
well, I
don't know
never heard
why.
of it on a frog. I've never heard of anybody putting scent on a frog, but now
Yeah,
you
I
got
don't
me
know.
thinking. And that's something that I don't do. Is the only time I've really used scent is kind of on a jig,
Really?
and it does help out a lot.
You got
If
anyone in
you're
particular
ever getting
or
short strikes, I mean, I don't know if it matters the type of brand you put on it or what, but
just
I mean,
something
I'll just tell you, I use Bang,
okay.
Crawdad Bang. My
The, in
can
the
is
little aerosol
rusted.
cans, tss,
Oh yeah, you can't even read it. It's so rusty, and
the
it's
paper's
like
all
4 years old, and it still sprays every time. I don't know how much is left in it, but it still sprays.
I like it. I used to get
Yeah,
that at Walmart.
that's where I kind of get it from. But
That's
I've tried
alright.
smelly jelly and stuff. I don't know. You smelly jelly, you kind of gotta. It's like a paste you got to put on there.
Gotcha.
I don't know if it.
Not as easy as
I
the
just got
spray.
that Bang, and it just sprays on, and even when you put it in the water, you can see the oil, like it's a whole leak.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but it is strong scent. It's really smells.
So scent. So, yeah, everybody out there listening, go get you some Bang scent and spray it on your finesse jig.
Yeah, I
Alright,
mean, I'm
so
being straight up and everything. I mean, ain't nothing to hide.
no, I like it. I like it because not everyone is as forthcoming with all the info. You've showed and shared a lot. But I got one other topic, and we're roughly 45 minutes in. I don't want to keep you too late. I know you got to work in the morning, same as me. But we've had conversations before about monofilament. Now you mentioned the Sunline was it shooter
Sniper.
the sniper? Sorry, Sunline sniper that you're throwing on your jig rods. But you have a cool theory on mono that Like I know a lot of guys, like myself included, I don't throw it for much anymore. I'll do, and I think we've had the conversation where I was using a somewhat stiff top water rod, so I liked having that mono to give me a little bit more stretch. But about the only thing I throw that mono for anymore is a top water bait that's got treble hooks in it, or I've played around on a swim bait rod, like with big glide baits. Again, give me a little bit of stretch, and it's I don't know. It loads funny. I don't know if that's the right word, but when your glide bait is swimming, somehow it almost feels like it's slingshotting it a little bit with that stretch in the mono. I don't know if that's just me. I'm not a great glide bait fisherman, but that's one thing I've thrown it with. But I think you throw it a lot more than me.
I I throw mono on my glide bait pole, on my spinner baits, on my chatter bait, top my top water, like, walking bait, popper deal is mono. I throw a lot of mono.
I like it. Now I've heard
The
of guys.
only thing
What
I
about
throw
crankbait?
straight only thing I throw straight fluoro on is my jigs.
Really?
That's actually the only thing I throw straight fluoro on is my jigs.
What about plastics?
Well, on my plastics, one rod I got like 2 jig rods, right? So one
Okay.
I'll every now and then Texas rig. It's 16 pound too. And then sometimes I got some poles with some braid and I'll put a 20 pound leader on, a
Okay.
fluorocarbon leader.
Gotcha. So you're braid to leader a lot. You're fluorocarbon for the jigs, and then mono for a lot of other things.
Yeah, all my crankbaits are mono because
I like that.
I'm a real nutty crankbait. I mean, I got a lot of cranks and a lot of old expensive cranks, stuff they don't make anymore. And when I use fluorocarbon, man, that a fluorocarbon is just not as abrasive as mono. I don't care what any pro wants to tell you. It's just
How
the
you
fact that I've used it for years, and the the fluorocarbon you just got to retie more often than mono. I mean, mono's tough.
Gotcha. It holds up on the rocks and the logs and all that
Yeah, because
stuff better
mono
than
is flexing and softer. So if you take anything more hard and you rub it up on a rock, it's going to be more. It's going to take a beat.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Now,
And
and I
I
don't
mean, if you're if you're on light spinny pole stuff, you feel like you got to retie quite often. With fluoro.
so you throw on spinning rods too?
No, no, no. I actually use fluoro leaders on spinny poles.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I actually use. But now, I'll use thicker. I very rarely go below 12. I use
Really?
12 pound line a lot. All my wacky and shaky heads 12 pound line. Very rarely do I go to 10 or I mean, occasionally 8. Like if I go to Ned, I got 8 on my Ned poles, but
Gotcha. That is, you're not the first person that I've heard that from, and I've started playing around a little more myself because, like, for like, my thinking for years was, "Oh, if it's on a spinning rod, it's, I gotta go finesse," and I mean, I've thrown a lot of 6-pound line, a lot of 8-pound line. Like, even for me on that spinning rod, getting up to 10 and 12 is, like, pushing it, but I've started doing it more lately because 'cause you're not the first person that has kicked my butt in tournaments that throws heavier line, and I can see there's a lot of advantages to it. I've always heard, "Oh, that lighter line, fish can't see it, the fluorocarbon, the fish can't see it," but, man, I've had bluegill come up and bite my line while it's, that
oh, the
invisible
knot or whatever.
fluorocarbon.
Yeah, yeah,
Not
yeah,
even the knot, just the line where it's touching the water.
yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and I've been in some super clear water situations where I swear they see it. Um, that maybe they're not seeing it, maybe it's like they're feeling it or something, but I don't know. I've had situations where that fluoro, I don't know. I don't know that the line makes a difference. I don't think if I was I don't know, but I wonder whether the heavy line makes a difference and actually does get you more bites in some situations. There's definitely more than one school of thought anyway, because there's some
Yeah.
great kayak fishermen specifically. We got a mutual friend that does the same thing
Yeah, Casey.
and
Yeah, we do the
throws
same
the
thing.
spinning
Yeah.
rod, and yeah, I mean, you guys wreck them.
Yeah, and I mean, we're
And
throwing it in rough stuff. I mean, we're catching them in real thick. But so we've been doing it years, I mean, for a long time. And now you see, like Wheeler a few years ago was up there at St. Lawrence, and where they got to catch multiple fish. That's their deal, is how many fish they can catch. And he was fighting the fish less time because he used bigger line. I don't know if you've seen them, that.
I
But
saw
anyway,
I
he
think
was
it was
using
Jason
12 and
Christie.
14-pound line. And then what's the new guy? He's a second year Japanese guy from
Koya?
Koya.
Fujita?
Yeah. Did you see he uses real short leaders, and it's real heavy line, like 14-pound or better?
I heard that. I hadn't actually watched enough of the live coverage
And
to
he's using like
figure it out
6-foot
myself.
rod, 6'3" rod or something.
I was listening to some guys talk about that too, and I'm like, that I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah. I think
That
Andy and them
seems
was talking about it or something, like in one of the Serious Angler shows or something. I believe they were
yeah.
talking about it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was mind blowing to me because I always thought, I mean, I don't think I have a bass rod that's maybe one, maybe a jerkbait rod that's under 7 foot. Like I just don't like I don't have anything that small. I mean, I got some old like ultralight stuff for trout that's little, but I've gotten away from those little rods. I always thought longer rod, more leverage, but I don't know. I guess it goes to show it's like you said earlier, like your confidence in that jig is a big part of what keeps you throwing it and what makes you do well with it is because you've caught fish, you've built confidence with it, and other guys do stuff differently and it works for them. They keep doing it. Like I
Yeah,
think confidence is a huge thing in this sort of game, chasing little
yeah.
green and
So
brown fish.
like that micro jig deal, that's way smaller than mine. I mean, that's really like, that's a spinny deal. You really got to throw, 10-pound line on that deal. I mean, because
Hmm.
you're talking, what's the weight on them things? Like
They got a
three
16th.
sixteenths,
I
eighth ounce,
think
3/16.
I think the football jigs, there's a bigger one. I'm trying to remember what the heavy size is, but I'm throwing I wanna say quarter ounce on the football one, and then I wanna say it's like an eighth and 3/16 on the other ones. Like, they're not super heavy, and they're not gonna be easy to sling. I don't know if I could cast them on a bait caster.
No, they're really, and the hooks are teeny. I mean, I
Oh,
don't
yeah,
even know
it's
what
a
size hook.
1. I think it's a 1, and
I thought it was like a size 6 or 4.
I could be wrong. I don't
Yeah,
wanna
I don't
misspeak,
know neither,
but
because I had the same ones that
check out
we stayed with that guy, but
yeah, check out
yeah,
the
I was
Missile
looking at his
website.
stuff and I was like,
It, Cashin, John designed he designed that jig, and John Cruz, and he also designed a rod for it for Cashin that I like, kind of a medium heavy, and the hook is fairly stout. Like it's short, but it's not it's not super thin wire that's gonna bend out, and he's using a uh, medium heavy power 7 foot, fast action rod to throw it. And I got one, and that's what I've been playing with, but it's definitely on the lighter side than what you're talking about. But I'm kind of wondering because I used to throw God those when I was in college, and you could go get those Bitsy bugs at Kmart.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
all I had was spinning rods. I might have had a one spinning rod and one bait caster, but I remember throwing it on little tiny line. Um, I know it works, but do you ever do that, or is it just the risk not worth the reward as far as the breakoffs?
If, so I have tied them little micros on when it's really super clear. But if you think about it, I mean, these jigs are not. When you go and grab a crawdad out of the water, I mean, I don't even. I think this thing might be 3 inches long total. So it's not that big, I mean, it's really not big at all. And then it's got the 2-aught hook in it, and then I mean, it's really, really flexible here, but yeah, it's not that big. So, like I said, I caught several red eyes on it the other day. So, and still having that beefier hook and just power fishing. I mean, straight power fishing in finesse situation, sort of. I mean,
I like that. So maybe
I
that's
guess
the
it's
last.
combining the two. I guess finesse and power together, really.
Okay. And I guess maybe that's the last piece of it. We've covered the jig itself, kind of how you fish it, and then is it always clear water, or I guess what are the conditions? Are you kind of going to this finessier technique? Is it a go-to, or is it something that when you try your other, maybe a spinner bait or a top water or something else, do you throw other techniques first and then go to this, or is this something that's just you do so well with it you throw it all the time?
No, I mean, like Susquehanna, I never been there last year, so I struggled in practice. I mean, like the only big bite I had in practice was on a jig, and I was doing well at the local levels here before I went up there, and it seemed like the fish were eating on the bottom, around here. And that's the way I break down everything all the time. Most of the time in the mornings, I'm always starting with top water, and then if they're not hitting any top water, I'll quit it really fast and see if they ain't hitting a moving bait, mid distance, subsurface, like spinner bait, chatter bait kind of deal. And if they're not hitting there, then the only other choice is being on the bottom, right? I mean, and that's the key of breaking it down. And so once you start getting bit on the bottom, I mean, it doesn't matter where I'm at. I like to get a lot of bites. So if I'm not getting bit every 5 casts or something, I'm kind of still changing mode until I'm getting bit a lot. And
Gotcha.
at the Susquehanna, I put up 70 some inches was best day in practice, and that's kind of what I was at 1 o'clock. But the problem was it was the opening day of duck season, and the area I chose was popular for duck hunters, and a place I really wanted to start had duck hunters on it, so I didn't get to it till 1 o'clock. And then it was all perfect timing though, because when I got there, it was my first cast actually with a jig on that point. Was I don't remember the size, but I had 95 inches in an hour, so 95 plus. It's like 95 and a half. A
That's sick.
smallmouth. That's insane. Yeah, I had like 90. I don't know. And the last one was a 20, and I caught it on a swim bait. I caught it on a mag draft. And then, see, I never knew that mud was coming until I caught that fish. So I was anchored out on that point, and then I was like, I think I casted several times and didn't get a bite. And then I was like, let me get off the bank here. And, anyway, I end up with that mag draft hooking that big one, and I'm out in the middle of the current. Susquehanna has some strong current. So I'm
Mhm.
looking at, let's get this big fish to the bank and get it measured, don't let it jump out and stuff. So I go crossing the river with it, and and the next thing I know, I'm going to like there's mud rolling down this side, and I'm like, well, what's going on here? I didn't realize that. Yeah. So I measure the fish, and when I go back out in the river, it's just like you can watch it coming across. It's coming down, spreading so fast. And then I get to thinking, I only got like 45 more minutes to fish or something. But what's the water going to look like for tomorrow? I mean, is this place going to be blowed
Yeah.
out tomorrow? I mean, I had no clue. I had nowhere else to go. And the next day it was really, really dirty. And I don't think I caught any on the finesse jig the next day. I think I caught them all on like spinner baits and chatter baits and stuff. But I got a friend that just chatter baits the river really hard, and it's all confidence. That's what he's got confidence in. But he's slow. He almost fishes it like a jig. It barely chatters
Mhm.
sometimes. He's using it,
Gotcha.
and he whoops everybody's butt. He's one of the best fishermen I know.
Well, shoot. So it sounds like that finesse jig, you do better with it in a little bit cleaner water.
Yeah, I prefer at least 6 inches to a foot. I prefer all the way to
Gotcha.
crystal clear. I mean, I've caught them crystal clear water. See, eight
Okay.
to 10 foot.
Well, I'm definitely gonna pick up a finesse jig a little more. I think one of the ways where I get in trouble is you're quick to put that top water down. I try to force it. I'm like, no, I'm gonna get him to eat this thing. And then I'll pick up the chatterbait and throw that and try to force that. And I don't get to that jig or that slower moving soft plastic enough. So that's something that's my takeaway is go to that bottom technique, something like that finesse jig a little quicker and see if I can connect with them a little more than I have here lately.
I was listening to live today, and they were making me flip out on live today. Like a lot of the guys, they just and they're really good anglers. They just believe in power fishing, and they don't, not talk negative, but they don't pay attention to the conditions. And I mean, you
Mm.
ain't got no wind, you ain't got no current, and it's bright, sunny, and warm. You got to finesse fish. You can't just overpower them with the moving baits, the bigger baits.
I'm guilty of it. I went smallmouth fishing the other day. I was telling you about it, and it was like that. Not a whole lot of wind. It's water's relatively low. It's clean, and I'm trying to force feed them a top water in the middle of the day, and it just wasn't happening. But I was like, no, I'm gonna get one. It's gonna work, and it just there's times where I do it. It's like I know I should change, but I just try to force it, and there's every once in a while it works out, and then it makes you be dumb and do it again.
Yeah, I get asked a lot, like, because I've always been fortunate and done pretty good in like the angler of the year standings and stuff. But that's one thing I do. I don't get stuck on. I'm open minded, and you know how much tackle I take, way too much.
Even
But
more than me.
uh, I'm always throwing something that's going to get. Most of the time, I get bit. I mean, I always like to catch fish. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, I don't care if it's a Ned rig. If I'm getting bites, I'm thinking I'm eventually going to catch a big one on it. That's and I've always been one thinking if I catch 50 fish, more than likely I'm going to catch a couple big ones.
It's
Other
a good
than
theory.
than just like thinking, well, I might only get 3 bites on this, but I'm throwing it all day.
Yeah,
You know
you're
what
gonna have
I
a
mean?
whole lot.
I'd rather get the 50 bites and maybe 3 big ones out of 50 bites.
Exactly. Because even if you don't catch, the 3 big ones, you still caught, you know, 50 fish versus somebody like me that's out there, power fishing, trying to get 5 bites and, maybe you get 3 all day.
Well,
And,
another
you had a lot more
example
fun
is,
in that
and,
scenario.
and this is me like going to Possum Kingdom, and it's the perfect time of year. It's still like kind of spawn time, hoping to find a big one on a bed. And I fish a different area of the lake I've never been to, and the water's kind of dirty. Can't see bad fish or anything. But I'm power fishing, like throwing big 7, 8 inch glides and going to catch my PB. And I catch one fish one day of practice. You know what I'm saying? And I catch it on a shaky head, and it's actually like a 21 3/4 or something. It's a giant. I mean, it's a big bass to me, really big.
Heck
And
yeah.
yeah, so the whole time I practiced out there, I was kind of power fishing, thinking I'm gonna catch a 10 pounder here soon. And I had a horrible practice. Really didn't have a very good practice or nothing. And but if you just go out and regular fish, you're more than likely, you could catch a 10 pounder. A guy I was staying with caught one right at 11 pounds. What was it, 25 and a half? I think it was 25 and a half inches or something. And it's
I've never
pretty
touched
cool, like the way
25.
that Texas got that set up. He's done got his they done gave him a plaque and stuff to what is
That's
that
cool.
called? The Lunker program or something? Share
Yeah,
Lunker?
trophy catch share lunker
No,
thing?
Share Lunker.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
they
you're
already
right.
gave
Trophy
him
catch in Florida.
I think Strike King Baits gave him some stuff, and it was wild.
That's cool.
Certified it. It's pretty cool.
25 is huge. I
Oh, it's
have,
insane. Yeah.
I've been fortunate to hit 24 a couple times, but never 25.
I
Never.
ain't hit 23 yet.
Oh, but yeah, but dude, look where you're fishing. And
Yeah, but dude, I fished Texas freaking. I mean, I've been everywhere. I mean, you'd think eventually I'd get
yeah,
to
dude, you'll
23.
get
Yeah.
it. You still put up a bunch of heavy fish, even if they're not long, skinny ones. But yeah, it helps. I'm a little bit jealous of the guys that live in Florida and Texas where, you know,
Texas is, man, that's just,
it's different.
Texas is really good fishing. It's funny to listen to them whine when they're complaining about, you know what I'm saying? They complain, and it's like
Well,
it's
what,
kind
like
of
3 to
funny.
5 pounders? I can't find any big ones.
Yeah, it's only taking 18 pounds to win this derb or something. I'm like, yeah, only
I
18.
I can't remember the last day I put up an 18-pound stringer. It's been a while. Maybe last fall one day, but yeah,
I
I don't
think
even know.
on Attorney X thing, it said Gunnersville the first day. It said that I had like 23 pounds. I knew I had
Oh, you
close to
smashed
it.
them.
Yeah,
You
it
absolutely
was,
smashed them.
but three of them fish were post spawn or pre spawn. I don't. It was just kind of a fluke deal. I really want to. I heard you talking about the native thing earlier. I really want to go to it this weekend, but I'm just ain't able to.
Wait, the one
Yeah,
this weekend?
and natives this weekend. Yeah,
Wait, they got one here too?
yeah. You didn't know the one at Gunnersville?
No, I screwed up. I was just talking about the one on the Columbia River.
When I got in, behind the studio thing, you was talking about the native, and I thought you was because it's not very good turnout again. It's not.
Huh.
The
I'm gonna
economy sucks. The economy sucks is what's killing it. I mean, it's a great tournament trail. I really like the layout. I mean, dude, they're giving away. Yeah, but they're having two this weekend. One out west and
oh.
and
Well, I'm
Gunnersville.
glad we brought it up because I'm navigating over to their website now because how did oh my gosh, I am dumb. All right, so I
Hey,
apologize to all the listeners because I looked and I saw the one that they had back in May on Hartwell, and I saw the one June 15th on the Columbia River. I didn't even realize, yeah, right next to it, Gunnersville Lake, June 15th. So yeah, anybody on the East Coast, you want to go catch, potentially a personal best. Shoot, there's one on Gunnersville too. I feel really
you
stupid now.
you want to go to Gunnersville now this weekend, don't you?
Kinda. My last trip over there wasn't so good, but car broke down and I couldn't catch fish, but
Yeah, dude, I passed
it's
you that day, and I was like, I think I called you as soon as I passed you. Yeah, because I
yeah.
went to the tackle store. Yeah, to try to get some more of them secret baits that was going to kill it the next day.
Well, you had an awesome first day. I was pulling for you the second day.
Dude, it's just that floating eelgrass. I knew I kind of got lucky, but then when you go back to the same area and you cannot cast and reel back, I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
so I went to the other side of the lake, and I could fish over there, and I thought for sure I'd get a limit, and it just didn't work out. It
Yeah,
was
you'll get
wild.
them eventually.
The first one I got was a nice one. He jumps off, and then I'm like, no big deal. There's fish here. Then I hook another one. It jumps off, and I'm like, well, it wasn't that big. It was like 15 or 16. And then, in between that, the first one jumped off. It was like four casts later. I hook up, and it's fighting really, really good. And I get it in the net, and I'm like, that's the smallest fish I've seen in 2 days. It was like 14-incher, man. It was real small. And then that's kind of how my day went. It was just everyone I got to the boat was, I had a limit. I actually 5 fish on Gunnersville for like, I think 66 inches or 67 the second day. And it's
I
just,
think that was better than my second day. Yeah, I only had 2 bites. 2 that I landed anyway.
yeah, but
It's
that's
rough for
just,
me.
man, that's small. But I mean, it took me all day to get 80, but it's frustrating.
Yeah.
Frustrating when you're
Dude, you
leading and you don't want to bomb.
I know what you mean, but
But it's good to be, you're thankful to be there. I mean, and to have a good day.
and you spend enough time around the top of the leaderboard, and it's just going to happen. It's
Just got to keep knocking.
oh yeah, you're right there, dude. Well, again, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been fun. Hopefully, everybody's gotten a lot of good information, and they can get out there and start throwing a finesse jig and catching some fish with it. But before I let you go, I want to give you kind of opportunity if you want to plug sponsors, talk about what's next for you, talk about social media, whatever you want to do. The floor is yours.
First of all, I'd like to thank my Lord and Savior and Jesus, and I'd like to thank Fishing Online, Native Watercraft, Dakota Lithium Batteries for all the support, and some folks custom baits. If y'all are looking into, yeah, you can send him some baits to paint, or he's got all kinds of different baits for you to choose from to purchase from his website. And thank you and Serious Angler, Justin, for having me on.
Well, it's my pleasure. We're going to have to do it again.
Yeah,
I've
I'm
got
gonna
this
have to get
idea.
you fishing on a new river here.
Yeah, yeah. We got
Yeah,
to plan
because
a
like
trip.
actually next month, I mean, we just had the Susky and I only have one weekend on a club tournament, so maybe next month we can go.
Yeah, I like it. I don't know if like I mentioned at the start of the show, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make the Susky, but and I don't know what my off days are gonna be either. Schedule's kind of all over the place, but I'm honestly I don't mind having days off in the middle of the week sometimes because there's fewer people at the
Oh,
ramps. It's nice.
dude, that it means so much difference between you fishing on a Wednesday than it is a Saturday.
Yep,
And that just shows us how much the fishing pressure affects these fish. I mean,
I
the
agree.
fishing pressure affects these fish so much.
Yeah, when they get beat up nonstop,
And
they pull
Gunnersville,
up
how
on
does it do it? How does Gunnersville do it?
Chick's another one that's fantastic fishing and gets beat up all the time. There's
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, I used to think the Potomac was bad, and it gets a lot of pressure too. With some of those grass beds, it's just a carousel of boats in them. When those some of those key grass beds that are holding fish, they just get pounded. But that river, I don't know. Some of these places still churn out big fish, good limits. It's yeah. I guess we're blessed to have some of those fisheries that not too far of a drive from home.
yeah. And then what you just said, the fisheries you just named with the pressure, habitat has so much to key, and they're all grass fisheries that have
Mm.
really good grass. And like if you listen to live today, the Bass Elites is on Wheeler, and there's no grass this year on the Decatur Flats, like
Ooh,
hardly any. And they are struggling, man. They are struggling. And so, what just 2 years ago, Wheeler was booming when it had grass. Now it has no grass, and now, the fishing is horrible.
yeah, it's not the same. And I want not to go, down a whole other rabbit hole, but I kind of
Yeah,
wonder if as some of these lakes age and they're less fertile and in theory, the fishing starts to slow down. I wonder if that's a way to rejuvenate some lakes is put some of that milfoil and hydrilla and coontail in there
oh, yeah,
and
but the problem is
revitalize.
they spray it. They spray it,
Yeah.
dude. That's the
Yeah.
problem.
Florida. I wish they wouldn't spray as much. Like it's one thing to spray a little bit of it or try to remove some, but when you just go nuclear with it,
Yeah.
nuclear. When you nuke it all, it's bad. It yeah. I mean, you look at Okeechobee and what that place used to be versus, what it is now, the limited amount of habitat that at least that I'm hearing fish are using. Everybody's on top of everybody in these
All the
tournaments.
fish are in one, like small areas because it's the only habitat left.
Yeah. It's it's sad and you know, I'm hoping that these places figure it out and don't destroy some of these fantastic fisheries that we have because we do have a lot to be thankful for here in the U.S., especially in the Southeast. So, dude, I know we've run a little long, but thanks again, and Yeah, we'll talk here in a few minutes, and hey, let's set up a trip. And I'm
Sounds
gonna
good, man.
be forewarned. I'm gonna when you're not looking, I'm gonna steal some jigs out of your box.
I'll make you some.
All right, dude. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Edwards. Thanks. Thanks again. Mark's a great dude, great fisherman, and yeah, I mean it. He is going to break through and get a win on the national stage. It is just a matter of time. And unfortunately for all you guys in West Virginia, I'm sure he's going to continue fishing all the local stuff and taking your money too. So sorry about that. But all right, we're down to our final two segments. Our Kings of the Week as the second to last segment, and then did our Yakking on a Budget tip as the final segment. I kind of like that, so I'm going to do it again. And before jumping into Kings of the Week, I mentioned it last week, but I want to throw it out there again. If you know of someone you'd like to nominate someone that is deserving of being our King or Queen of the Week, by all means, reach out to us on social media. You can send me a direct message on Instagram. Uh, you can drop a comment on our YouTube page. Uh, and it doesn't necessarily have to be to nominate somebody. It can be just critiquing the show, ideas for a show topic. Uh, Feel free to reach out if you've got ideas, comments, concerns. Bailey and I are happy to hear them. But for Kings of the Week, we've had some weeks. Last week was an example where there were a bunch of deserving candidates. It was tough to pick one. This week, it it's kind of like last week. I was on social media and ran across something that really jumped out at me. So we've got what to me was a really obvious choice for King of the Week, um, and not based on tournament results. Um, I don't know if I've mentioned it. I can't remember if I've mentioned it on the show before, but I listen to a lot of podcasts. Got a little bit of a commute to work, so I'm typically listening to some sort of fishing podcast on the way to and from work. And one of the ones I listen to a lot is Bass After Dark, and they're not focused, specifically on kayak fishing, just kind of fishing in general. It's a fun show. It's very informative. I really enjoyed that show, and it's not the only one I enjoy, but I was listening to that show today actually, and lo and behold, a kayak angler makes it on as one of the experts, one of the guests, Mr. Adam Reiser. Ironically, Adam was our first guest on Kayak Fishing Weekly, so it was really cool to hear him. And I've, full disclosure, I've not listened to the entire episode. I just got started coming home from work today. I'll hear the rest of that tomorrow, probably to and from work. And for anybody that hasn't listened, it's a longer podcast. It goes sometimes 2 hours or more, but it's a lot of fun. If you like bass fishing, if you geek out on it like I do, it's a great show. So Adam uh, is one of the experts that they called in. The specific show had to do with electronics, and Adam was the representative of the kayak community. So I thought that was really cool to see kayak fishing gaining traction on a more mainstream fishing podcast. In my opinion, one of the best ones out there. It was awesome to see Adam as an expert on the show. I can't wait to hear the rest of his insight talking about electronics. He's very good with his electronics, so I'm all ears. That's one of my weaknesses, something I want to get better at. But huge congrats to Adam for making it onto the show and for representing our sport and doing it very well. So our King of the Week, Adam Reiser, congrats. And that leaves one segment. It's our newest, something we've only been doing for a few weeks now, but we're calling it Yakking on a Budget. And I think I've said before, one of the cool things about kayak fishing is it's not as expensive as some other avenues. Bass boats are expensive. Any type of big boat's expensive. You can get into kayak fishing very inexpensively though. You can take it to the extreme, like myself, a bunch of the other tournament guys spend lots of money on high end kayaks, fancy gear, but you can also do it on a budget for very little money. And that's kind of one of the things that I like about the sport, and that's where this segment originated. And the tip for this week's pretty simple one. It's more of a general fishing tip, but I think it also relates to kayak fishing If you're trying to fish on a budget, this stuff. I'm holding up for anybody who's listening. I'm holding up some Vicious Fishing Ultimate. It's a monofilament line, and it's kind of fitting. We were talking to Mark earlier, and monofilament came up. I still use mono for some topwater applications. Mark uses it a lot. I know he's a big fan of it. And the great thing about mono is it's inexpensive. I love fluorocarbon for certain situations. Honestly, most of my fishing anymore I do with fluorocarbon, but fluoro is not cheap. Braid is also not cheap. There's definitely situations around heavy grass. If I'm punching, if I'm throwing a frog, I want to have that braided line. But for a long time, mono, I mean, when I first started, mono was what there was. That was what you would use if you were going bass fishing. It's the only thing that was available. Um, and it still works. It's much cheaper than the others. It's not necessarily going to be the best line for every situation. Um, but if you're looking to get started and you don't want to break the bank, mono is a simple way to get started. Um, if you can check out the Vicious Fishing website to get some of this. I think they also have it on some other sites, online retailers. I was not able to find it on Omnia, but Omnia, let me scroll over here real quick. They've got a number of other mono options. I see Suffix, P-Line, I see Trilene Big Game, and Stren. So if you're a fan of Omnia, they've got some monofilament options over there. Again, it's going to be a lot less expensive. Mono as a line for anybody that's never used it, it's significantly stretchier. It floats, it's stretchy, has some give to it, but you can definitely catch a lot of fish with it. I have, and if I could make recommendations as sort of a line size to pick if you're just starting out for spinning applications, I would say 8 or 10 pound mono is going to work for pretty much anything that you're going to do with a spinning rod. And then for a bait casting rod, uh, somewhere in that 14 pound range, that's going to work for most bait casting applications. Again, is it the best thing for every situation? Probably not. But it's a great way to get started. You can catch a lot of fish with mono. And again, I still use it. There's other guys that still use it. So save yourself some money starting out and get some mono. And that's going to do it for this edition of Kayak Fishing Weekly. As I mentioned, feel free to drop us a line on social media. We're happy to have feedback. Love to hear your thoughts, whether they're positive or negative. Any sort of feedback is appreciated. It's been a fun show. Thanks again to our guest, Mark Edwards, for coming on. And yeah, we're going to do it again next week. So come back for more kayak fishing conversation, and we will talk to you then.